PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Kelly. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, this is going to be part 2 of our 2024-2025 NHL season preview. Now, for part 1, which we did on the Eastern Conference, that's the one we did on our most previous video. So if you want to hit our tab right up here, hit any of our links right on the corner of our screen, or we have a playlist if you're on our YouTube channel. Go back and watch our Eastern Conference preview if you have not seen it. What part 2 is going to be is about the Western Conference preview. And this is going to be a very fun episode, breaking down everything that's going on with the Western Conference and telling you who we see as a playoff contender, and more importantly, who we have missing the playoffs out of the Western Conference. We'll be doing this entire preview on PRConnectionsRadio.com here on Vegas Hockey Hub. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on all major platforms at Vegas Hockey Hub. And if you want to follow me, I'm right down below at Ian J. Kelly. So starting out the 2024-2025 NHL season preview, we're going to go over to the Central Division. And for the Central Division, we're going to do very similar to what we did in the last video. We're going to start from the bottom up. So we will go from who I have in last in the Central Division and then work our way up 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in that order. And to start this out with a team that I am projecting as the worst in the Central Division, we have an organization that has a superstar, a generational talent, but they are still lacking in certain areas. And of course, that is the team out there in Chicago, Illinois, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, do not get me wrong. I am going to be watching a lot of Chicago Blackhawks games. Connor Bedard is such a generational talent. And more importantly, Connor Bedard is a must-see person. Okay, if you have a chance to go out and see Connor Bedard play against your favorite team, I had the privilege of seeing the Chicago Blackhawks take on the Vegas Golden Knights last year at T-Mobile Arena. I say it is worth every dollar you invest into it. Connor Bedard is that type of player. But the unfortunate part about the Chicago Blackhawks is that you can't copy Connor Bedard. You can't have him be on all 4 lines. You can't have all 12 forwards just be Connor Bedard. And that is where the situation ends up going in the Chicago Blackhawks' unfortunate disfavor. As the Chicago Blackhawks organization is lacking in terms of depth. This is a team that has Connor Bedard. They have some good guys on the forward ends that could help out, but in reality, your top 6 is really where your talent is in terms of forwards. Bottom 6 is lacking. Your defense, you add in Alec Martinez, but with his injury concerns, it's a question to see how many games he actually plays. Seth Jones, one of the most criticized defensemen in the NHL. A lot of people wonder why the Blackhawks still gave him that huge contract, considering where they are at this point in time. Goaltending for Chicago, it's likely to be a conveyor belt of goalies being in and out. It'll be interesting to see who the starting goaltender is for majority of the season. And for the Chicago Blackhawks, I just do not trust them long-term this season. So the last spot in the Central Division, and that's going to go to the team out there at the United Center in the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, number 7 in the Central, we're going to go right over to their division rival, and that is the St. Louis Blues out there in Missouri. And this is a St. Louis Blues team that is far away from what they were 5 or 6 years ago. You don't really have any of your superstars left. Majority of your depth players have gone someplace else. And more importantly, your head coach is no longer there. You have a new era now in St. Louis. And the sad reality is Jordan Binnington, Torrey Krug, that is pretty much all you have in terms of the old guard that is from that Stanley Cup run. You do have some promising talent. Jordan Kyrou is a very good player. Robert Thomas is a good player. But the issue with St. Louis is very similar to Chicago, where the St. Louis Blues just do not have enough talent all around in terms of the roster to be a playoff team. It's an organization that was just a few points out from being a playoff contender last year, and I feel like they're just sputtering. They're kind of going to be in neutral this year in the Central Division, and just for that, I have them at number 7 in the Central Division, being out there in St. Louis. And at number 6 in the Central Division, this is going to be an organization that has really been in mediocrity over the last couple of years. This is a team that either makes the playoffs and gets kicked out in the first round, or they miss the playoffs by just a few points. That has been the cycle for the last couple of years out there in Minnesota. And the reality is you do have some good talent. You have a star out there in Gabriel Kaprizov. However, the issue you have in Minnesota is that your bottom 6, I don't trust it. I think your defense lacks depth, and your goaltending, you have a Marc-Andre Fleury who is retiring after his 21st season in the NHL. You did try to keep your goaltenders and keep them around, but your goalies weren't really that great last year, and you're bringing them back once again. So I really see Minnesota as just a neutral team at this point in time. This is going to be a Minnesota Wild team. It's going to be around 80 points. They might still be on the fringe of being a playoff contender, but this team is not going to make the playoffs. And the reality of all of this is that you have a Minnesota Wild organization that should really be shuffling the deck and moving stuff around. I mean, they have a young goaltender in the wings that they barely have started in the NHL, giving him a few starts here and there because of the roster space is just not there in Minnesota. Would really like to see Minnesota commit to a full rebuild instead of just being in mediocrity and being in neutral like they have for the last decade. At number 5, this is an organization who made the playoffs last year. They have one heck of a roster in terms of their top 6, but it's their bottom 6 and it's their roster from top to bottom that does concern me, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. Now, here's your disclaimer, by the way. If the Winnipeg Jets organization gets carried by Connor Hellebuyck, they will make the playoffs. All right, we have seen that Connor Hellebuyck, him being a superstar goaltender, he can carry a team on his back. The issue is that if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't overproduce, if Connor Hellebuyck does not outperform himself and exceed expectations, this roster is an 85-point team. This is a Winnipeg Jets organization that just does not have a lot of substance beyond their great players that they have. Yeah, you have Mark Scheifele. Yes, you do have some really good, outstanding players on your top 6. We all know that. But Kyle Connor is not going to be on your bottom 6. You do have some question marks there. In terms of defense, Josh Morrissey, top 5 defenseman in the NHL. But when I study the rest of the defensemen, there are some question marks in terms of your depth. So for the Winnipeg Jets organization, you have to sit here and say, unless you get carried by arguably one of the best goalies in the NHL, I don't see you as a playoff contender. I see you as a fringe on the contention, just on the cusp of being a playoff team, but that's all you are. So at number 5 in the Central, that is where the Winnipeg Jets lie. Now at number 4, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. My, oh my, am I going to get a lot of feedback on who I have at number 4 and a team that I have barely missing the playoffs. This is going to be a team that's going to be 4 points out, 5 points out from missing the playoffs. And this is an organization that spent so much money this offseason that it is crazy. They are the so-called winners of the 2024 NHL offseason, and that is the Nashville Predators. Now, before you start, let me answer this question. On paper, are the Nashville Predators one of the best teams in the NHL? Yes. On paper, did they make amazing move after amazing move? Correct. And on paper, should they be a Stanley Cup contender? Correct. However, that's on paper. The issue I have with Nashville is their age. So you go out and you sign Steven Stamkos, who's in his mid-30s. You go out and get Jonathan Marchessault, who's going to be entering his mid-30s. You end up going out and you have some guys like Ryan O'Reilly, who's a veteran. You have Forsberg, who's a veteran. You have a roster out there in Nashville of guys who are in their 30s. Roman Josi is getting up there in age, even though he's still a good defenseman. He's getting up there in age. This is a Nashville Predators team that has guys that are around 33, 34, 35 years old. And I really question how they are going to do in the dog days of April. All right. How is the Nashville Predators going to do when you're at game 80 of an NHL season? Because I have no doubt that the first 20 to 25 games of the year, Nashville is going to look great. The first quarter of the season, Jonathan Marchessault is going to be scoring goals. Steven Stamkos will be lighting up the lamp. Forsberg will be doing his stuff like he normally does. But the issue I have is that when you get older and when you sign players who are in their early 30s to mid 30s, when you get to game 75, right? When you've been playing on that long 10-year schedule and you have a March and an April where you're playing back-to-back games and you're playing 3 out of 5 days, how's that going to handle for them guys? And for that reason, with them getting older and them having a age that I think if I remember correctly, of 33.5 for a defenseman, this is a Nashville Predators team that is hoping and praying that their veterans do not get injured. They are hoping and praying that the aging and the father time does not kick down their door. So because of all the stuff I just said, the Nashville Predators will barely miss the playoffs. And my top 3 in the Central. At number 3, I have a team that's entering their first season in their city. I have an organization that has turned itself around over the last couple of seasons. And an organization that Bill Armstrong has been building up near perfectly. Them going out and getting not 1, not 2, but 3 solid defensemen this offseason is a great move by the Utah Hockey Club. Them having all of this young talent like Jack Doan and Logan Cooley, having these amazing young guys finally be on the roster, them drafting a Ginla in the first round. I don't know if he will be on the team this year, but he's one heck of a talent. The Utah Hockey Club have been built for the future, and their chips are being cashed in at the right moment. This is a roster that I got to see personally when I saw a preseason game between Vegas and Utah. I mean, scratch that. Even on the Monday prior, when Utah was taking on LA, I got to see them twice in this preseason. And this Utah Hockey Club looks ready. Clayton Keller is a star that could be a superstar depending on how well he does. This is someone in the Utah Hockey Club that has a really well-rounded middle six and a top 6 to boot that has been done very well over the last couple of years in development. So here is my shock to you. I have at the second and final wild card spot, the Utah Hockey Club. That's correct, ladies and gentlemen. I have the Utah Hockey Club in their first season in Salt Lake City being the second and final wild card in the Western Conference. Now, let's get the top 2 out of the way real quick. As you have in the Colorado Avalanche organization, they will be the second best team in the Central. If it was not for the team I have above them, they would arguably be a top 4 team in the Western Conference. However, this is a Colorado team that dealt with so many injuries last year. Their core is aging. They are getting older. McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen. Cale Makar is still in his prime. A really good defenseman. But I do have to wonder about Devin Taves. I have to wonder about how the rest of those defensive pairings are going to look in Colorado. Alexander Georgiev is a real solid goaltender, all-star last year, and someone who could get the job done in Colorado. And because of that, I had the Colorado Avalanche as the second best team in the Central. And the Dallas Stars organization, I should have said this earlier, they are the best team in the Central. They are who I have as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. There is one organization in the Pacific Division that will be the best team in the Western Conference. They will be the number 1 seed, and they're actually my pick to win the President's Trophy, but we'll get back to that in a second. Jake Ottinger, elite talent in terms of goaltending. Your defense is stacked. You have 3 solid pairings in terms of defense in Dallas. Your top 9 is among the best in the NHL. And you have a young up-and-coming talent in Wyatt Johnston who balled out and had a breakout performance in the playoffs at 20 years old. You have all of these guys who are meshing together, and they have a solid chemistry out there in Dallas. Pete DeBoer has done a really good job out there in Dallas. And the question you have to ask yourself is, can Pete DeBoer win his first Stanley Cup? Can he overcome a decade plus of grueling defeat and defeat and defeat? And can he finally break through and win a Stanley Cup in Dallas? We will find out soon enough. So here is the Central Division once again here on Vegas Hockey Hub, doing our 2024-2025 NHL season preview. At number 8, we have the Chicago Blackhawks. At number 7, we have the St. Louis Blues. At number 6, we have the Minnesota Wild. At number 5, we have the Winnipeg Jets. At number 4, the Nashville Predators. And the 3rd seed and making the playoffs will be the Utah Hockey Club, formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes. At number 2 will be the Colorado Avalanche organization. And at number 1 will be the Dallas Stars, the best team in the Central. And as we are doing this season preview here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PR Connections Radio, let's move over to the Pacific Division here on this show. Now, if you want to go into the comments and if you want to agree or disagree with me, go right ahead. I encourage all feedback. However, I do want to know one important question. When it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, before I put them up on the screen, I want to know from you, where do you place the Vegas Golden Knights? In your best guess, in your best estimation, where would you put our Vegas Golden Knights 1-8 in the Pacific Division? Do you put them as the best team in the Pacific? Do you think that they're good enough to be a top 3 seed and a wild card team in the Western in the Western Conference? Or do you have them missing the playoffs entirely? That is a question for you. I want to know what that answer is, and we'll do all of that just later on if you do respond. However, let's get into our list here on Vegas Hockey Hub. And we're going to start out with the worst team in the Pacific Division, a team that just announced a captain that I do wonder what their motive is there, and that is the Anaheim Ducks organization. They are still in a massive rebuild. A lot of their young talent is not there yet. They're kind of developing. They're trying to get them ready. But the reality is the Anaheim Ducks are just not there yet. This is a Anaheim Ducks organization that is still years away from being a challenger, to being a contender in the Western Conference. You still have a long way to go, and despite the coaching change and everything that's going on there in Anaheim, I do question how many more years of this rebuild their fan base is going to have to endure. So at number 8, the Anaheim Ducks, the worst team in the Pacific Division. And at number 7, a team that had a generational talent show up on their doorstep, and that is the San Jose Sharks. Congratulations. You have William Eklund, you have Smith, you have Macklin Celebrini now. The issue for San Jose, very similar to Anaheim about a minute ago, is that you've built up this talent, all right? You have Askarov, a really solid goaltender you acquired from Nashville, but they're also young. They're prospects. They're developing. They're progressing in the NHL. This is a San Jose Sharks team that is still 2 years away. This is a San Jose Sharks organization. I like what Mike Grier has done. I actually think that he has made solid progress out there in San Jose. The issue is that they just are so young, their core is not ready yet. So at number 7, San Jose Sharks, and at number 6, and the final team that is going to miss the playoffs in the Pacific Division, that is the Calgary Flames. This is a Calgary Flames organization that is finally entering a rebuild. After years and years and years and years of frustration, this is a Calgary Flames organization that has just been treading water. They've been staying neutral and kind of trying to hover in the wild card situation. But after trading away Kachuk all those years ago, now finally getting rid of some of their talent this offseason, trading away Noah Hannafin at the trade deadline, letting go of Jacob Markstrom. He goes to New Jersey. I have to sit here and say, Calgary, you're not San Jose bad. You're definitely not Anaheim bad, but you are going to be bad in terms of wild card contention. This is an organization that's going to be around 75 to 80 points on the year. Calgary, I do not expect much from you. There's not going to be much positives, but there's going to be a lot of negatives that are going to have to get changed over the last couple of years. So for Calgary, you finally have committed to a rebuild. You're finally starting over, and you're no longer just being in neutral. Congratulations to you. And for all the people, by the way, that did answer that question that I did ask you about 5 minutes ago, here is your answer to where Vegas Hockey Hub has the Vegas Golden Knights ranked. Because at number 5, and making the wild card in the Western Conference, is your Vegas Golden Knights. This is a Vegas Golden Knights team that lost so much talent in free agency. Marchessault's gone, Amadio's gone, Stevenson's gone, Martinez is gone, Thompson's gone. They have been kind of taken apart piece by piece in terms of their top 6, middle 6, bottom 6. Their goaltending's been changed up. But here's the positive for Vegas. You still have an elite goal scorer in Jack Eichel. You have teamed him up with a former teammate in Victor Olofsson. William Karlsson scored 30 goals last year. He'll be in your middle 6. You have Alexander Holtz, who you're trying to give a second chance to after his disappointment in New Jersey. Brennan Bryson, a former first-round pick. Let's hope he develops. One positive Vegas does have, though. Your defense, you have 4 deep. You have 4 solid defensemen with the Vegas Golden Knights. The question you have to ask yourself is A, can Aiden Hill stay healthy? And B, will that bottom 6 produce more than what they're advertised to be? And I will say that Aiden Hill will play 40 games this year at goalie. Okay, I expect Aiden Hill to mostly be healthy this season for your Vegas Golden Knights. If not, you have Ilya Samsonov, you have Akira Schmid. This is a Vegas Golden Knights team that goalie is a little bit of a concern in terms of health, but if they are healthy, they are going to be a wild card team, and that is what I predict the Vegas Golden Knights will be. And at number 4 in the Pacific Division, making the playoffs once again, will be the Los Angeles Kings. This is a team that has been very dysfunctional in terms of the front office. Management has been a bit of a question mark, but what you can't deny is that they finally went out and got a goaltender in Darcy Kemper, who should be better than what Cam Talbot and other goalies have been in the past since Jonathan Quick has moved on. This is a Los Angeles Kings organization that did add depth on the defense, and your forwards, you finally got rid of PLD, and there's some aging veterans that they did have to walk away from, but they brought in some younger guys to fill in those holes. So the Los Angeles Kings, the first wild card spot, will go to LA out here in the Pacific Division. And for anybody who's curious who my top 3 will be, you probably have noticed that there's one organization I have not put up yet. There is one team that Vegas Hockey Hub is very high on heading into the season. This is an organization who made the playoffs 2 years ago. This is a team that has so much talent on their defense, their goaltending. They have 2 goalies that I actually believe are going to be better than expected. And your forwards have a bunch of young guys finally progressing, and they are now developed in the NHL. They made some good acquisitions. They brought in some good veterans to help out the middle six. And this organization will be the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division, as I have the Seattle Kraken making the playoffs and being one of the top 3 seeds in the Pacific Division. I really sit here and look at what the situation is in terms of coaching, in terms of management. Ron Francis has done really well with what Seattle has done so far. And this is a Seattle Kraken organization that's going to get the job done and make it to the playoffs once again for the 2nd time in franchise history. The bad news is that the Seattle Kraken are going to have to go up against a team that just was 1 game away from making it to a Stanley Cup and winning that Stanley Cup championship. This is a Edmonton Oilers team that was literally 1 game away from winning a Stanley Cup. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, those are 2 of the best names in hockey. Your injury concerns did not happen last year. You were one of the least injury prone organizations in the NHL last year. It benefited you mightily in the playoffs last year. And with the Edmonton Oilers, you are, for the 2nd year in a row, you're going to be a 2nd seed in the Pacific Division. This is a Edmonton Oilers team that is going to be a top 2 in the Pacific. I have them ranked as the 3rd best team in the Western Conference, but they're not the best in the Pacific. Because the best team in the Pacific is out there in British Columbia, not Alberta. The best team in the Pacific Division, and my pick for the President's Trophy winner for the best record in the NHL this upcoming year, will be the Vancouver Canucks. They have a top 9, which is a top 3 unit in the NHL. You have Quinn Hughes, who is arguably the best defenseman in the NHL. You have a defensive core that has been built mightily and is very rock solid out there in Vancouver. And the goaltending situation, the fact that your 3rd string backup did amazing last year in the playoffs, tells you how well the Vancouver Canucks did last year. Thatcher Demko, I understand the injury concerns there, but as long as you have a credible backup behind him that can come in and play, the Vancouver Canucks have that. Rick Tocchet, one of the best coaches in the NHL, and I really like what Patrick Allvin has done for the Vancouver Canucks organization. So I will say right here, right now, that the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, the President's Trophy winner, will be the Vancouver Canucks. Now, here is a quick recap of the number 8 teams in the Pacific Division. At number 8 will be the Vancouver Canucks at number 1. Number 8, the Anaheim Ducks organization. At number 7 will be the San Jose Sharks. At number 6, the Calgary Flames. At number 5, your Vegas Golden Knights. At number 4, the Los Angeles Kings organization. At number 3, the Seattle Kraken. At number 2, the Edmonton Oilers. And at number 1, the Vancouver Canucks. So, this is our 2024-2025 NHL season preview of the Western Conference. And this was PR Connections Radio. This is Vegas Hockey Hub. And until next time, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.